My name is Patricia Dunn, and today I will be reviewing a series of videos we watched in my Speech 1315 class by the communication coach Alex Lyon. So jumping straight into today's topic, I'm going to start with the first video, which is how to start a speech. Alex refers to this as 5 ways to start with a bang. Number 1 is going to be to tell a concise story. Although this is a higher risk way of starting your speech or telling a speech, it is also a higher rewarding way of telling your speech. Important factors to remember when using the story approach is to make sure that the story ties into your overall message. Make sure that it still has a beginning, a middle, and an end. This story should also show a relevant transformation and growth. So this story should apply. This story should have some type of resolution, some type of applicable knowledge or applicable details to your speech. Number 2 is going to be to ask some key questions. Although it's not a questionnaire and you're not necessarily waiting for a direct response from the audience, it is great to present questions that kind of gets the audience's mind flowing. Another important thing to remember is asking questions also creates engagement. Whether it's directly or involuntary, it creates engagement. You don't necessarily have to ask questions that pertain to only the audience, but mainly questions that frame their mindset for what you're going to be speaking about. Number 3 is going to be share a powerful quotation. If you know a quotation that pertains to your topic that has already stood the test of time and is kind of well known throughout the community or the audience that you're speaking to, it is a great idea to include that quotation in your speech. It can also show the audience your mindset, as well as kind of tie back into the mind frame you want your audience to have as you're giving your speech. Typically quote people that had a positive impact on your listeners, people that play into your message and have years of research or years of study into your topic. Make sure you're correctly quoting and attributing your quotations to the right person. You don't want to make sure that you're not attributing to the wrong person, because it would kind of make your validity in question, make you a little bit more, your message a little bit more blurry. Number 4, share an interesting fact or statistic. Again, similar to making sure you quote the right person or quote the correct way, it's also important that you verify the stat or the fact. You want to do your research and triple check that the information you're sharing is accurate. It should still, again, be tied to a concise story. The number 5 and last final tip that Alex presents in this video is using a visual illustration. Although you don't want this visual illustration to be distracting or distract from your message, it can be a catch-all strategy as far as gaining this audience understanding and their participation. It could be a visual image, a short description, maybe a manuscript or an audience engagement, maybe even having the audience interact with something on their device. But it should be creative. That's how you sell the visual aid. Some overall pro tips that I got from this video was definitely develop your ideas before you develop your intro. Make sure that everything is clean. Double check your technology and make sure that you don't ramble. Stick to this topic and stick to the story. I found this video extremely helpful when even organizing my current speech, just because it kind of gave me ways to put together something in lights that I never thought of. Going on to the next video, we're going to do how to speak with confidence. So the number 1 tip when speaking with confidence from Alex Lyon is don't sit, lean in. So don't slouch back in your seat whenever you're presenting something, or don't wait or have unprofessional posture. Always sit up straight and lean in when you're engaging in a professional setting or a speech or an environment. Leaning in shows that you are there and that you're present and that you're eager to participate. When you sit back, it kind of involuntarily puts you in a role, kind of a minor role, so always sit up. Number 2 is going to be don't ask for permission to speak. Just assume everyone knows you're going to speak. So asking for permission can sometimes make it seem like you're not worthy of being there, like you may not have the adequate information or the adequate knowledge on the subject to even be speaking. So it's always great to just, when there's a pause, there's a quiet moment, definitely it's your time to speak, and you should always put your accurate information out there. The next number 1 is going to be number 3, and that's going to be don't wait on an invitation, just wait for a short pause. So kind of going back to what I'm saying, no one's going to invite you to speak. Wait for that pause, wait for that ending of someone else's idea, and jump in there eagerly with yours. If you have something to say, others will expect you to say it. They will not give you the grounds to say it, but they will expect you to say it. Number 4, don't assume that others know you want to speak. This kind of still ties back into the last 2 tips Alex gave us. Clearly signal when you're about to talk. So that could be leaning in, like we discussed in our first tip, raising a finger, waiting for a long pause, and deeply inhaling. So those are ways that you can kind of get attention of the other people and letting them know you want to speak. Number 5 is don't be long-winded. Meet your point clearly and concisely. So when you're presenting your ideas or your thoughts, sometimes when we have time to sit back and kind of chew on our words, we do tend to find more information or more details, and that can kind of lead into a overdump or oversharing. So always make sure that you're concise and straight to the point. Boil down your statements to their essence. Any fillers and unnecessary words, just try to leave those out. Don't apologize. Be clear and concise. Sound confident and avoid rambling. Number 6, don't be dramatic. Stay composed. Speak up earlier in the meeting so that you kind of don't chew on your words, like I was saying in my previous point, and kind of digest more information than you need. Kind of speak up as soon as you have an idea or as soon as there's time permitting for you to speak. Number 7 is don't send weak nonverbal cues. So going back to our first point, the slouching in your seat, the sitting back, the speaking softly, those are all nonverbal cues that kind of make it seem like you're uneducated on the topic or that you're not worthy of being in the room with higher ups or speaking in a conversation with higher ups. By speaking confidently and knowing your information and having that strong, confident posture, you can avoid sending those negative cues. Also, after you speak, maintain eye contact. A lot of times I am very guilty of this. I'll speak, I'll say something, and then look right back down. Maintaining eye contact is also a great way to show confidence. I definitely feel like this video was something that I can take besides just speech class. This is something I can use in my everyday life to better my speaking ability. So definitely enjoyed that video, and I also feel that I have friends and family that can also benefit from knowing those simple tips. The nonverbal cues were also something that I wasn't typically familiar with on my end, so I really did enjoy learning and having that knowledge brought to my table to being able to perfect and learn on those skills going forward. So the next video we enjoyed was going to be public speaking for beginners, and in this video Alex gives us do's and don'ts. So I'll be going through a series of do's and don'ts from the video. The first don't is don't ramble or be long-winded. I'm definitely guilty of this, and it's something that I'm trying to work on as I continue through Speech 1315. When a speaker is disorganized, they tend to ramble. And it's not necessarily that you don't know your thoughts, but sometimes over-research or over-filling your head with information can lead to rambling unnecessarily. Instead of the don't, you should give an organized and concise message. So make some clear points and stick to it. Don't ramble on, don't go off topic, and don't add extra information that is unnecessary. The next don't is going to be don't look in the wrong places and avoid bad eye contact. So that's going to be looking at the floor or scanning the audience. What you should do instead, one of the do's from the video, is look directly into one person's eye. So while you're speaking or getting through a thought, look directly into someone's eye. Once you're finished with that thought, you gradually move on to the next. This is a great way to clearly have engagement with your audience while still maintaining on task and not looking as nervous. Another thing too is that Alex wanted to mention in the video is one thought, one look. So once you're through with one thought, that one look is over and you go to the next person. It's also just another way to stay clear on topic and still engage with your audience. The next don't is going to be don't clutter up all of your notes. So spread out your notes. Kind of going back to what I was saying, there are times where you might have an overload of information on your topic, and instead of cluttering it all in one area or cluttering it all on one set of cards, spread it out. Make it more uniform so that you kind of have a flow and an understanding of hitting those key topics. So his do in this situation is pare down or simplify your notes. Kind of going into what I was saying, make sure that you have a simplified list of what you're discussing and stick to that. This frees your mind and it enables you to connect more with the audience. So if I'm not worried about going through my notes because I'm nervous and all the other stress factors that are in that environment, I can simply stick to those points and what I'm here to relay, the information and message I'm here to relay. So the next don't is going to be to avoid complex slides. So although some things may be visually pleasing, they can also at times become overstimulating. So you want to avoid jam-packing slides with information or extras like text, font, videos, and graphics. Keep it very clean, clear, and to the point. It should never take you longer than 2 or 3 minutes to get through a slide. Clear slides is what his do is, and clear slides can make your message more concise and tailored to the audience. The next don't is going to be don't fidget. So don't pace or tap or do anything that kind of distracts from your overall message and your delivery. A do is have more confident posture. So standing up straight, avoiding pacing back and forth, avoid slouching and looking down. Those are all great things that can help you as far as being able to be concise. The next don't is don't speak softly. So always make sure for his have is you want to make sure that you're projecting your voice. Rather than a bigger or a smaller audience, you always want to make sure that your voice is carrying. So his do for that is have a loud, confident voice. Emphasize keywords and pause after you share a key idea or thought. So always give the audience time to digest your ideas or thought. It will, in the end, make the presentation a lot more interactive and make sure that everyone in the audience grasps your entire message. So I thoroughly also enjoyed the public speaking for beginners video. I enjoyed the do and don't approach. I felt like as someone, pretty much anyone, not even just me or students in the Speech 1315 class, everyone can benefit from these. And not even just in giving a speech, but in everyday life. Summing up what people tend to do just kind of almost out of a reflex kind of made me more self-aware of what I do personally. So this video was something that I found that was also a very helpful task or a very tool going forward. The next one is going to be public speaking anxiety tips. So we break these down into 2 different categories, mindset and behavioral. In the video, Alex explains this as a 2-sided coin. So they kind of coincide together. One's not greater than the other, but they both do kind of have their own part and tie back into each other. So these tips that we're going to go through, the first 6 of them are going to be about the mindset. So if you can change the way you think, you can change the way you feel. And he really did go deep into this idea throughout the video. So starting with number 1, anxiety and nervousness are not signs of trouble. Just because you're anxiety or you have anxiety or you're nervous does not mean you don't know your material or that you can't perform well. You can. You just have to make sure that you stay calm, you focus. These are just signs of that something important is about to happen. So being nervous and having those feelings of uncertainty are definitely normal. Stick to what you know and work it out. Number 2, you're only about half as nervous as you think. The other half is excitement. So although a lot of times I'm very guilty of this, I psych myself up to do things. Once I'm actually in the process or the swing of doing things get a lot better and I kind of get more of an excitement and a more exciting attitude about presenting things. So just as much anxiety as you have just as much excitement. Number 3 is going to be you don't look as nervous as you feel. Although you may have those butterflies and your heart's palpitating and you may have those other factors going on playing in mentally, they do not show on the outside like you think. The listeners cannot see how nervous you feel. Okay. The next one is going to be number 4. The spike of nervousness lasts less than 60 seconds. Once you're actually in the swing of presenting something and giving your speech, the nervousness tends to die down almost naturally. The hardest part is anticipation. You anticipating giving the speech and being in front of people and running the risk of embarrassment is what ultimately makes you more anxious. Number 5, anxiety and nervousness are not a barrier to doing outstanding jobs. So it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Although you are nervous, you can still perform well. Number 6, assume that everyone is rooting for you. No one wants to see you do bad. 9 times out of 10, if you're giving a speech and someone is there to listen to what you have to say and listen to your message, they're here to see you win. They're here to hear your voice. We tend to over-exaggerate the negativity. Again, going back to kind of what I was saying about the nervousness and how it can make you seem like you're more inclined to fail than succeed, but it's not true. When you walk into doing a speech, always assume that everyone is there to see you succeed. So the mindset tips were definitely something helpful. It kind of showed me how to frame my mindset when going into speaking. As I do grow in my ability to speak and as I go on to show these videos to my other family and friends, I definitely feel like this is a forerunner for me. Again, I hate to keep repeating myself, but this is something that you can use in the long run to help you in any setting, not just giving a speech. So continuing on the tips for anxiety, we're going to go into the tips for behavioral. So going back to that two-sided coin, mindset and behavioral have a huge impact on anxiety. And so we're going to go into our first tip for behavioral tips. Number one, practice like crazy. In the video, Alex mentions practicing at least 10 times. This enables confidence. 90% of how presentations come out is how you practice. So the more you practice, the better a presentation tends to come out. Number two, focus on your message and your audience, not yourself. Like I was saying before, we tend to get wrapped up in the fear of being embarrassed or the fear of doing bad or the negativity, that it kind of makes us more self-centered than presenting the audience and presenting our message. When we focus on our self-perfectionism and the threat of being judged, we can induce anxiety. So instead of focusing on sublime factors, focus on the overall message and the audience at all times. Number three, visualize the first 30 seconds as positive. When you walk out there, visualize a crowd reaction and a beautiful intro and clearly concising your points and clearly getting to the audience in the first 30 seconds. That is a great way to kind of break the ice, almost make the air feel a little thinner. Number four, get there early and walk the room. This was my favorite tip from the video, and it made complete sense to me. It's something I plan to use going forward in anything that I do. Walking the room. Being able to see the environment, being able to feel every area of the stage and every area of the audience gives you a bit more sense of familiarity. It makes it seem smaller and familiar, which is something I feel like is what caters to a lot of my personal anxiety and a lot of the anxiety of my friends and family. Number five, get to know your audience beforehand. If there is no clear information on who you'll be speaking to or the people directly that you're speaking to, you can always try to do your research beforehand. Learn everything you can about the audience because it reduces anxiety. It goes from speaking to a bunch of strangers to speaking to a bunch of colleagues or, familiar faces, which is a lot easier to speak to. Number six, and the last tip for behavioral is going to be take deep breaths. So these should be breaths in your nose and out your nose. This simple activity lowers your heart rate and lowers your blood pressure, and it's something I'm actually told to do even in my physical mental health journey as I go through psychiatrist and therapist appointments. I absolutely love this video of the series. This was my favorite video. There were very, very warming tools that I plan to use going forward, especially the touring the room and the deep breaths. So I definitely enjoyed that video, and will be recommending it to my friends and family. I feel like everyone can benefit from that video, not only because they're just general tools that can be applied in multiple ways, but because the video was clear and concise and gave examples of each one and why they're so important and how they can drastically impact anxiety. And because pretty much all of us struggle with anxiety when it comes to speaking or even just having meetings at work or whatever the case may be, it is crazy important to always reflect back on that video. The next video is going to be how to analyze an audience for public. So we talk about this triangle, which he calls the public speaking triangle. At the head of it is going to be the speakers, then you have the message and the audience. In the how to analyze your audience for public speaking video, we go more into a audience-centered approach. This video really broke down key ways to connect and identify your audience, such as asking the audience questions, getting the audience engaged, audience disposition, which helps us tailor our message to the audience. At times, you may run into the fact that you're not truly able to generally understand your audience by what's on the surface, and to combat this, you should go ahead and take the time to do your own research. Tailor your message and hit the center. We call this audience-centered approach. So when you hit the center of something, you're necessarily making sure that you're keeping your audience in mind and your message in mind as well, making sure that your message is tailored to your audience and still staying within the means of what you're presented with. I enjoyed this video as well. I felt that this video was a bit of a different structure from the past videos and was more of an informational video. This wasn't really like a tip-by-tip video, more so giving you information on the importance of getting to know your audience and having a different questioning the disposition and sending questions to your audience is just majorly important. I definitely would also recommend this one to my friends and my family, just because it kind of gives you a clear, concise of why it's important to know who you're speaking to. And I feel like you can benefit from that in any role, any job, anywhere. So going back to kind of one of the videos we talked about in the beginning, which is how to start a speech. This next video goes in further into stories. This is 5 tips on how to tell a memorable story. He's also in partnership with another public speaker in this video, and she's the one giving out the tips in this one. Her number 1 tip is going to be know the point of your story. Why are you telling this story? How does this relate to the audience? What do you want the audience to do, think, and feel with this story, right? Number 2, tailor your story to your audience, problem and or pursuit. Think outward. Again, going back to what we just previously said, not having a speaker-focused speech, but an audience and message-focused speech. Audience forward approach. The next one is going to be number 3, which is manage everyone's emotional journeys. So when you're telling the story, you don't want to leave anyone hanging or anyone in the dark, and you kind of don't want to be insensitive to other ideas and themes that may revolve around the audience. You want to make sure that your story is clear, concise, has a beginning, a middle, an end, has a point to being told. Number 4, leverage the power of concrete details. So of course we don't want to go into rambling and oversharing or giving details that kind of don't apply to your message, but it wouldn't hurt to kind of elaborate. In the video, the speaker gives an example of telling a story about a bike or telling a story about a purple bike with streamers on the handle. Those small details take such a minute story and make them more interesting, make them more eye-catching, make them more relative. Okay? And the last tip for this one is going to be number 5. Don't forget / create the drama. Most of us are going to be more inclined to hearing stories about the drama or some type of resolution, some type of up and some type of down, some type of challenge and some type of contrast. And I feel like this was a really good tip. I know sometimes you can tell a story in its simple format and get the business purpose out of it, but it kind of lacks. It's kind of lackluster, and people tend to not remember it or see how it applies or not really listen to it, kind of in one ear and out of the other. I thoroughly enjoyed this video. I felt like it was great to see another person's perspective besides just Alex's perspective on this. And it was also really great to hear her examples of taking such small details, making them bigger, and making them still apply and have such a broader impact. I feel like anyone can use this going forward, even in school. It definitely would play out in school, not only in speech, but in other classes. So this is something I definitely will take with me. Next is going to be 4 tips for speaking with an accent. So this is something I have to work on regularly. I am from the South, so I do have that Southern drawl, and I feel like this video was something that kind of made me more mindful of tips that I kind of knew but don't stress as much. So we're going to start with number 1, emphasize the key words. So an example of this that was provided in the video was, I agree with your statement, or I agree with your statement. Those subtle emphasizing that keyword agree changes it. In the video, they're described as function words versus content words. And in this case, agree would be a content word. Number 2, make a list of the most common job-related words. So no one's expecting you to be fully fluent unless that's pertaining to your role. However, if there are words that you use that you repetitively are seeing in your role, it is great to jot down those words and make sure that you can pronounce and pronunciate those words correctly. Number 3 is going to be slow down. Most of us speak too quickly without realizing it. I'm definitely guilty of this. Sometimes when I know the information, I get to running and going faster, and it doesn't help my message get across any clearer or faster, but it's just something that is a bit more comfortable for us. Stress keywords to slow down, and then also pronounce those consonants that we clearly sometimes tend to kind of jumble up. The next one is going to be number 4, which is non-native speakers overanalyze themselves. So kind of going back into what I was saying, a lot of people don't feel like I have a Southern drawl or a Southern accent, but to me, I overanalyze it and don't want to come off as uneducated or uninterpreted. So I always try to make sure that I am focusing hard on what I'm saying. And in reality, people do not care about your accent as long as you're speaking clearly. As long as your message is getting across, people do not care about the way you said this. As long as it was clear and it was accurate and it was the proper pronunciation, you're fine to go. So sometimes we got to get a little bit out of our head with that one there. But that wraps up what I was talking about today, reviewing the videos from my Speech 1315 class. I thoroughly enjoyed these videos. They all each gave me different perspectives on things I can take going forward. In this Speech 1315 class, I hope to continue to use these tools and apply these tools. Although this might not be my best speech in the world, I know that every day I can wake up and try again and try presenting another speech. And I know going forward, now that I have this beautiful deck of tips, I will be able to go ahead and apply those. So I plan to share this information with my family and friends. And thank you so much for tuning in. In conclusion, I greatly appreciate Alex Lyon and all of his amazing tips on speaking. If you're not familiar with his content, I recommend going out and checking him out. And again, thank you and have a great day. Bye.